Hello, Blake Bruning here from Trinity Whip Co. This video is for you first-time whip crackers or your first-time two-handed whip cracking. You people that are interested in doing that. This video is to show you maybe how to organize and maybe schedule your training sessions when you're cracking whips, because you usually just have so much a lot of time, but maybe how to structure them a little bit better to get more results quicker. So if you don't know any whip cracks, that's good. This video is also for you. But this video is not to really teach you these basic whip cracks so much as show you how I want you to start doing them as you've learned them or as you learn them. So you might want to go to our other videos on this YouTube channel, Blake Bruning, and what you'll want to find is the fundamental whip cracks or the fundamental two-handed whip cracks. Those series will help show you how to do these individually. But in a minute, we're going to go ahead and talk about the moves I want you to learn, what order, and we'll talk more about sequencing and scheduling after that. So, the cracks I want you to learn and the order in which I want to learn these cracks will be this, for this first segment on one-handed development. Say, well, let's just make it one-handed. Number one will be the cattleman's crack. All right, so that's the first crack I want you to work on, if you haven't. The second one will be the reverse cattleman's. And then those are to lead up to this third crack, which is slow figure eight. Now the slow figure eight is really just two of those, but the goal is to have them in a constant progressive flow. Right? So with that, those are the first three I want you to work on. Now if you don't have these down, I would say go ahead and spend your first session on these. But if these are pretty good already, or you're ready to move on, or say you're getting these down, the next one I want you to work on is now going to be the overhead crack, and as well as the overhead crack, I want the reverse overhead crack. All right, so they'll look like this. The overhead crack, so that's the fourth one, and now the reverse overhead crack. Now the overhead crack, number 4, is the same as the cattleman's, except the cattleman's is on the vertical, and the overhead just hits the horizontal plane. Now, the reverse overhead is the same as the reverse cattleman's in, except that I just slowly, instead of making it vertically, we start doing the same thing. But I would not recommend the same progressiveness as this, because you're kind of in the way of it hitting you. But it's the same concept, doing this reverse, but bringing it high. Just horizontally in it. Now, I need you to learn those two so we can do this. And I guess you could call that the overhead to the reverse overhead, but I like to call it the one-handed Queensland. So, once again, the 6 we're going to learn in order is this. The cattleman's, number 1. The reverse cattleman's, number 2. Number 3 is the slow figure eight. Number 4 is the overhead. Number 5 is the reverse overhead. And number 6 will be what I call the one-handed Queensland. Alright. Now, this is definitely your starting point for one-handed, so we're just going to leave it off with that right now. Now, when I find people are learning to crack whips for the first time, or just learn any sort of gross motor movement, instead of spending an hour doing just the cattleman's crack, maybe that first class you need to, but you can get somebody cracking the cattleman's in about 15 minutes if someone's helping you, probably 5. But 15 to 20, you should be able to figure out a cattleman's. Won't be great, won't be fully timed, you'll have issues. But, within 5-10 minutes you should be doing a cattleman's, 15 at the most, 20 if it's just whatever factors are taking you a while. But it shouldn't take that long. Now, the first time you ever crack whip, you may go ahead and decide to do the cattleman's for, half hour straight or an hour straight, or, maybe that's all you feel you can take in that first session, and that's okay. Whatever you've got to do for that first session. But what I recommend is instead of spending an hour on that one, it'd be better if you at least just spent 15 or 20 on that first one, and then maybe 15 or 20 on a different crack, and so on and so forth. But I would say I'd rather break it up even more than that. Now, you see, your body can only retain and function to new training only so well. like whatever the motion is you're learning, whether, you know, it's like Simon's Lightning, you know, to get them to work for the first time, or any new ways that, you know, the whips move around each other, your hand motion, your body has to train muscle memory. So I find that when you're trying to do something, you got to kind of step back and walk away and come back from things. And, you know, that's why they usually say just sleep on it, you know, and that can help. Like, literally, you can just sleep, and the next day you're a little bit better just because you've had a day of it. But the reason you need to sleep on it sometimes is your brain can only process how to get something so trained in one moment. So even if you expand on that and make it 30 minutes, about that last 20, there was nothing really good coming out of it, just because it's just going to be the same rhetoric over and over again. So what I recommend is, if you can only get an hour a day to crack whips, first of all, let's go in this order with these 6, you know, if you're up to that point. If not, you work on it. But instead of spending, say, 1 whole hour cracking all 6, like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 5 minutes there, I would rather you spend 6 10-minute sessions. So instead of 1 long hour, get 6 10-minute sessions. Now, if you step out for 10 quick minutes and do these moves, and then maybe a couple hours later come out for another 10, I find out that your learning curve skyrockets, just because you've allowed your mind to settle down and do some other things, and your body to carry on and just kind of forget about it. So when you step back out there, it kind of picks up quicker. I mean, just changing your training to doing it for one solid block as opposed to breaking up several blocks a day, you're going to see a huge difference. And not only that, then let's just say we have those 10 minutes. Well, let's break those up similarly. So if I had 10 minutes and I'm still just trying to get these basic cracks down, what I would recommend would be, you know, let's say 3 minutes on the cattle. We'll do this. 1 minute on the cattlemans, 1 minute on the reverse cattlemans, 1 minute on the slow figure 8, and then 1 minute on the overhead, 1 minute on the reverse overhead, and then another minute on the one-handed Queensland. So that's 6 out of 4. So, I mean, if you need a little bit extra time on one or the other, you can't get all the way through 6, that's great. But if we did that, now let me see, I have 4 minutes left. I would say, all right, well, in that 10 minutes, not only did I just make sure these are fresh and they're just becoming more natural to me, but now I got 4 minutes to try some shadow boxing. So go ahead and try to see how you can combine these moves. Like, find out how to pop in the overhead and then back to horizontal. Or as you learn any crack, you should do something like that. You know, try to shadow box a little bit, or, you know, play with it and just kind of free play. So that's our first lesson I want you to have. Hopefully you have all 6 of those down, or if you're learning, well, like I said, this is also if you're just learning. So I need you to go back and watch fundamental whip cracking, understand these, and then systematically try to get all 6 of these to where in 10 minutes you can do one for a minute. It doesn't have to crack good. I don't care if it cracks, I just care you get the motions down to train muscle memory. Cracks will come. But let's look at it as now 10-minute break 6 times a day if possible, as opposed to 1 hour break. Now, you can't always do that, but if you can arrange your time, that's how we should go about it. So we'll talk more in this next segment if there is one. We'll talk more about two-handed, or maybe the next series after this. So now that you have those basic 6 cracks hopefully working good and you're ready to move on, I would say don't move on. I would say now I want you to get them just as good on the left hand. So I definitely want to work on the same 6 cracks and maybe in the same 10-minute scheduling, where you would spend a minute on the cattlemans, you know, a minute on, that's the goal anyways, a minute on the reverse, a minute on the slow figure 8, a minute on the overhead, a minute on the reverse overhead, and then a minute on the one-handed Queensland, as I like to call it. So we want them both down here. Now, a lot of times at this point though, instead of even going left hand, or if they're trying to talk actual progressive of the basic cracks, usually they would probably have moved on by now. They would have you do the sidearm flick, and you will want to learn that, the overhead flick, overhand. They'd probably do the Tasmanian cutback. They might want to do the Singleton special, see if I can get it going off. Whoops. And all those are good things to work on, but I would say to definitely start with the skills I think you're getting interested in and wanting to get your fundamentals better, just to heighten the learning curve. I would say just stick with those basic 6 and get them down in your left hand. And I really think that should be your next focus. So now we can come back and do two-handed whip cracking basics. Well, now that you got those 6 basic cracks on the right hand and the left hand, we're going to move on to basically doing the same thing with 2 of them. Now, whenever you do two whip cracking, or 2 whips that crack, you know, you can do anything with one with the other, and there's a lot of cool routines you'll learn and variations, and there's almost so many that no one person could master them in a lifetime. But the fundamental of everything you'll do will either be on the vertical line. So this is the vertical line for me anyway. Right? that you see in the side of it, or it's going to be on the horizontal line. So this is another reason why the cattlemen's in reverse and slow figure eights are very important, as well as the overhead and the reverse overhead, and then the one-handed Queensland, as I call it, because almost every routine you'll have will come out of probably doing a form of figure eights, or fast figure eights, or using volleys, which like I said, we'll talk about fast figure eights and volleys and that going on as time goes by. But a lot of those would come out of that vertical routine, or the rest usually come out of the horizontal routine. So the Queensland, so those two set up the stage for everything else, which is why I would say if you're definitely beginning and you want to get better faster, it's better to probably stay with these 6 moves and get used to doing them two-handed. Now, same time is the easiest. Like I said, same time would be this, where they come down together. And you can do that with the, like I said, you can do it with the overhead. I find it's really tricky, though, to do this with the reverse overhead as easy as you can just do this with the overhead. It's a little trickier to kind of pull them up, and you're more likely to get them tangled. And I think it's just because to do it one-handed, you're kind of using that big helicopter propellers they talk about to get it going. Well, it's a lot better to, after you come out of this, just lower it and then come back around. So it might be better to try the reverse overheads. Almost get to them right here, right here. It might be better to get those by just going from the overhead to the reverse overhead than it would be to do individual overhead. So I would almost say, they can get caught very easy that way, especially into it. So I would say it would be better to do the same time cattlemen, same time reverse, same time slow figure eights, same time overhead. And instead of trying to do same time reverse overhead, it'd be a lot better to do reverse overhead, or the one-handed Queens, reverse the same time overhead. And that should be your next step, I would say, for two-handed cracking. All right, so once again, we're talking about also scheduling. So if these are all pretty good, your job is to, instead of spending 1 hour just trying to do cattlemen's together, like I said, you have a whole hour block, spend 15 minutes doing just the cattlemen's, and then 15 doing the reverse. But just move on from one. Don't just stay with one for too long. 5 minutes is better. That's great. I think less time is better. But move on through it just like that to get used to the gross muscle movement, and then as soon as you can, go back. If you just want to start the 10-minute segments, go ahead, but get the 10-minute sections where you leave for a couple hours and do 10 minutes, leave for a few hours, do 2 minutes, as opposed to, once again, one 10-minute block of the day. And so you do the same thing: 1 minute cattlemen's, 1 minute reverse, 1 minute slow, 1 minute all that, leaving 4 minutes to shadow box, or get used to maybe going from cattlemen's to the Queensland. And they don't need a crack. We just want them not to tangle. So it doesn't really matter if you're getting a full sound right now. We just need to train the muscles to get used to having them cross. So just like whenever you do Queensland, whenever they cross, one of them has to go under. And whichever one goes under, it can be left or right, but whichever one goes under has to be the one that cracks a hair first. So it would crack, my right hand, being this one being the under one, would crack just a hair first. It'll sound like one when it's fast or near it, but this one's just a hair faster because it was the under one. So take those and play with those, and do the same scheduling techniques, which is what this is really about. And then we'll see if there's one more section to get you going next. All right, I think this will be our last segment for this video. I'm gonna add more. So now that you've got, like I said, a good foundation for how to arrange your first cracks to get really good really fast. I've seen this improve a lot of people through this method. And we're still keeping it very basic, but I think at that point now that if you're here, and maybe what we'll do at this last segment on this one, it is now okay for you to start looking for maybe not just the new basic cracks, but that as well, but new routines. Find routines that you see that you think you can piece together from what you're understanding, and try to just slowly incorporate those and use that for your free time or your next focus time, since you have these basics down. But I would say that if you still want to stick to these basics, so there's one more thing to do before we're ready to move on, because after this you kind of have the foundation. We're going to talk about the timing with two-hand. So with two-hand, you have a thing called, which you can see in the other videos that I have on fundamental two-hand whip cracking, but you have like same time, stagger time, and then balance time. And so two hands work like that. Some routine will be a same time cattlemen's, which would look like this. A staggered, where one will go just a little faster. This cracks right before it, just like a little did up. And then balance time, which looks like this. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, as opposed to one hand or one. Now, now that we went ahead and like I said, we talked about those first 6 cracks, one-handed, and then with two-handed, we kind of omitted number 5. We just went from cattlemen's number 1, number 2, reverse cattlemen's, number 3, slow figure 8, then overhead. We skipped doing the same time reverse overhead and went right to the Queensland. Well, now we're going to take even more out. Now I'm going to say we're just going to do 3. We're going to do cattlemen's alone, or slow figure 8s, or Queensland. So this is what cattlemen's alone will look like. You're going to learn to just focus on these 3. Cattlemen same time. Slow figure 8s. This is number 2 now. This is the second one to work on. This will be our main focus, and then the Queensland. So now that's the 3 we're going to work on now, but we're going to have the timing differences of same time, staggered, and balance. So the cattlemen's, when we want to do same time, no problem. All these are a lot easier same time. But with the staggered, one goes first. And here's my tip for two-handed, is that whenever you do two-handed whip cracking, I say that if you're right-hand dominant, your left hand should probably be the one to crack first. So if you're left-handed, your right goes first. Like I said, when I do staggered, one has to go just in front. So make it your weak hand. Find it's a lot easier to have your right hand just kind of respond more naturally to cues without thinking as much. So put all your thought in that first strike. Like I'll go extremely slow compared to this one, but when they raise, but I can make that right catch up because my right's my dominant. So to still get that timing, you can just, it'll just be a little head. But I think it's better to have your weak hand lead it and let your right do the catch-up work, because if something goes wrong here, my right can kind of compensate easier. But if something goes wrong here, it takes too much of my brain to tell my left what to do when you're starting off, or even period. So make the left hand the first one, especially once we're going, we go to balance. But have your left one be the first one, so it's easier for your right. Now we'll do the same thing with the queen or the slow figure 8 now. So we would now go. So that'd be our number 2 crack that we're going to do in our little increments. And then our number 3 will be the Queensland. Now again, whichever one cracks first has to be the underhand. So if my right cracks first, it has to be the one that's under when I come back through. It's my left. My left has to be under. So my right will be the lead on this. Doesn't have to be. All right. Now that was just the overhand, but we're going to do from overhand to reverse. My right's going to lead it. Ready? Now, that's the 3 you're going to work on, and we're going to now break them down to where same time for a minute with cattlemen's, same time staggered, and now our third step would be same time balance. And now cattlemen, you can do balance well. Instead of just keeping them in front, I find it's better to kind of Nordic track it as it is, because you learn to bring your handle here. And like I said, the other video will talk more about how this one comes down, this one goes up, this one comes down, this one goes up. But if you bring it back, it times it better. What's most important when you start doing balance time cattlemen, bringing them by is important because it's getting you ready to be able to do these slow figure 8s. So let's now do balance cattlemen's. You can, like I said, go to the other video to see this. Oh, so we can also now do balance slow figure 8s. So once again, I think the weak hand first helps you train it. I suppose this one going first and now this one's all messed up and you can't get it. So again, I think it's better to lead with your weak hand as you learn those. When you go back and learn those, if you haven't learned them yet, or as you're seeing my schedule and you're keeping with it, that's your next one to go back and watch. Definitely have your weak hand lead it. Be a lot better that way. But definitely do a little left hand lead and right hand lead. You shouldn't just stay there. So balance slow figure 8s. And now we're going to move on to the next one. Now, like I said, now we'll do the balance again with the Queensland crossover. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Whichever one cracks first has to become the underhand. Now, so This is the last one in this segment, and I want you to take the same ideas of 10-minute sessions and a minute here, a minute here, a minute there. You just cycle through them and then do some pre-shadow. So now we'll do a minute, but since we got only 3, let's do 2 minutes. We'll do 2 minutes of cattlements, but do it same time. Try a little same time. Then after about 30-40 seconds, some balance time, 30-40 second, or stagger time. Another 30-40, do balance time, and then move on to your next one. So our next one now is slow figure eights. The next one is Queensland. And like I said, just take the idea of that scheduling and the timing and putting them in order. And I think take that with you now. So as you implement other routines and you're trying to be systematic about it to accomplish a goal, try to take the same process. So now I would say it's almost different. Say you have your time scheduled and you have your A moves or your warm-up moves that you like, that you're just mastering at, just to warm up with. So then you can work on your B game. So you got your A game to warm up real quick to do your B game, which are the moves you're really wanting to learn, or the ones that are the new ones you want to implement. And then while you're there doing those, I would definitely still talk about a C game. A C game would be maybe a new crack that you're having trouble with, or a new routine that you want to do. Definitely spend a little bit on it. But like I said, when you're learning something new and your body can't train it, you'll spend 20-30 minutes, get frustrated, as your body just can't really learn too much in that 30. So just slowly add one new one in. And like I said, it might be good to have your warm-ups real quick to move, hustle on the ones you want, and then just have a couple to play around with. And then that would be your segments. Maybe I'll develop it. I hope it's helpful. I hope it's beneficial. Just taking some of, I would say, the way I understand martial arts development and scheduling, and trying to arrange your practices in a way that might just be a little bit more conductive than to just say go out there for an hour and just try to crack a whip. Now, this should be enough to get you going for a while. At this point, you'll probably watch other videos. Adam Winrich, I have some more, but not that many as far as bench cracking. Check out his stuff. Just start searching for these routines, or when you watch his video, you'll hear about 2 or 3 other routines, and just search around. But definitely start seeing routines that just make sense to you, and you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll see one that's just too hot or too fast, too sizzling. It's like, I can't understand what they're doing. Well, keep an eye for it, save it, but try to find the ones that don't look too much outside of the box. Now, I may make some more videos in this series. I may not. I think this is going to cap this one. But if you find this helpful, man, just drop me a comment. If you want to see more of this, let me know. God bless. Have a good day.